I'm Tim of Govberg, and welcome to the world of Omega. Today, I'll be your guide to the proper usage, care, and maintenance of your Omega Seamaster Professional Planet Ocean 600 meters. Now, this grade 5 titanium dive watch is an automatic winder. Nevertheless, you can manually wind this timepiece by turning the crown out counterclockwise till you feel and hear it pop out of its threaded sleeve. From that point, take the crown and turn it in a clockwise direction, 30 to 40 turns. This will be sufficient to start the movement. You'll see it ticking, as well as build up a small power reserve buffer from which the watch's automatic winding mechanism can build. Now, once the watch is running, 30 to 40 turns later, you can set the time, set the date, screw down the crown, and the watch will continue to wind itself on the wrist. But should you wish to fully energize it up to its rated power reserve of approximately 60 hours, simply turn and stop when you hear a subtle tick or click signifying that 60 hours has effectively been reached. Because of the bridle style mainspring within this watch that slips to relieve excess tension, once it reaches its maximum power reserve, it simply slips to avoid damage. This is by design. So listen for that subtle snick or tick from inside the case. It's your sign that you're charged up to 60 and it's time to stop winding. Now, it may be time at that point to set the watch against a reference time. Pull the crown out 2 detents from winding position and stop the seconds hand at 12. Now, look online, find a reliable reference such as an atomic clock set to your time zone, set your watch to the same hour as the atomic clock and 1 minute ahead from what you're reading on the atomic clock. When your reference time catches up to the second, minute, and hour that you've set, push the crown back in at exactly that moment, restart the movement. Now you've synchronized to a reference time. Keep in mind that because this watch features a time zone or traveler's feature, you can adjust the local hours even as you cross the international date line east or west, driving the date in either direction as necessary. Without stopping the movement, you can make these incremental adjustments. So though you are adjusting the hour and changing time zones, you're not affecting the chronometric precision of the movement. Once you're done, always screw the crown back to flush the case to protect it from impacts and abrasions, but most importantly to secure it against water intrusion. Now, there are a number of dive features that bear additional explanation. The rubber and ceramic bezel is a unidirectional rotating dive style bezel, which means you turn it only counterclockwise, the logic being you can't accidentally extend, only accidentally shorten a dive. Line up the luminescent pearl as you choose with either the hour hand or the minute hand, and time an interval from 0 to 60. This is highly convenient, not just if you're diving, but anytime you need to time a short interval from the length of a meeting, time remaining in an exam, or even cooking. It's highly convenient, somewhat easier to read at a glance than a conventional chronograph, and carries none of the long-term maintenance requirements of a complicated chronograph. Now, the helium escape valve, divers who need this, you already know all about it, but a brief explanation: it is for those who dive in helium-rich professional diving environments. Think an exotic gas mix and a diving bell. In that environment, helium will build up inside the watch, and as one surfaces, oftentimes in a conventional dive watch, the helium will not be able to escape sufficiently quickly to avoid blowing out seals and crystals. The alternative is to feature a helium escape valve, which threads into the case and out of the case. Prior to an ascent requiring the helium valve, thread it out of the case. Now, it's also important to remember that the watch features both the usual and unusual measures for adjusting the bracelet. You can see individual sizable links removed with screws, a feature seen on many contemporary Omega watches, a push-button micrometric slider for precise sizing or taking in or out slack as your wrist may expand or contract, and then for those who really need to extend, there is a flip-out clasp, and you can see upscale ceramic retaining pins to maintain those crisp tolerances long-term. This may be used for extreme changes in sizing at a moment's notice, should, for instance, you need to put the watch over a diving suit or even a thick sweater or thick winter coat. It is highly useful for both purposes. The clasp features twin trigger release, meaning you must positively disengage it to pop it open. It cannot accidentally pop open perchance, being neither friction fit nor secured by a clamshell. Now that we've discussed some of the subsidiary functions of the watch, let's talk about hazards that you need to keep in mind while using your timepiece. For the most part, they constitute water, yes, for a dive watch, temperature, and shock. Let's start with water because it is the gravest threat. Now, water that enters the watch can disable a watch, destroying the movement and also causing catastrophic cosmetic damage, to consequences that can only be described as labor-intensive and expensive. Therefore, you can help to avoid accidental drowning. Though this watch is rated by Omega to 600 meters, sufficient for professional diving activities, keep the crown threaded in. Keep it secured against winding, against setting. Don't thread it out, not just while the watch is submerged, but while there is water on the case to avoid bypassing the case seals. Now, it's also important to remember, just as you can help avoid accidental drowning by properly using the crown and not using the crown, water resistance is not a static feature of a timepiece, especially if you are going to use this watch for diving. As seals age and lubricants degrade, a watch will be relatively less water resistant. So Omega recommends on an annual basis having the watch water tested at an authorized Omega service center to ensure that factory-rated hermeticity is retained. Now, thanks to the master chronometer status of this watch, it is effectively amagnetic, so you don't have to worry about magnetism, but temperature should be taken into account to protect your watch. It's best not to expose the watch per Omega to temperatures beyond 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius, or beneath 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Concussion and shock should be kept in mind, though the watch does feature a dual-anchored balance bridge and a free-sprung balance with exclusive shock protection developed in-house by Omega and the Swatch Group. Nevertheless, extreme concussive activities such as batting, tennis, golf, the riding of ATVs or mountain bikes, or firearms marksmanship may cause the watch to keep poor time or even sufficiently damage the movement to stop it, so ensure the watch is disused during these activities. Ultimately, Omega recommends every 4 to 5 years a comprehensive mechanical service for a fine timepiece, automatic or manual. Now, this will involve everything from cosmetic restoration of the bracelet clasp and case, to restoration of water resistance and recertification of dive capability, to cleaning, oiling, and adjustment of the movement itself. The best way to gauge whether your watch requires a comprehensive service is to have it thoroughly inspected each year during its annual water test. Should an intervention be necessary, service exclusively with Omega authorized service centers or the factory itself, as these agencies solely have the trained personnel, original factory replacement parts, and specialized tools and equipment to protect the value of your watch as both an instrument and as an investment. Moreover, only these agencies are able to back all labor and parts invested with an Omega factory service warranty valid for 2 years. Finally, visit our website at govbergwatches.com and call, text, or email our experts who will be happy to walk you through every phase of the usage and care of this or any Omega timepiece.